So we're on the topic of which equipment you want to purchase. What do you need? What is your budget? So let's say you've decided you want to buy a really good digital SLR and you want to get in some really good lenses and you want to jump right into it. Well, besides buying new, we have other options, and one of those is buying used equipment. I can tell you from being a long-time nature photographer that we're always changing lenses and thinking we need the newest and best, or we should have had this, or we'd like to try that lens. And most of us are the same that way. So what this creates is it creates a fairly large market for used equipment. So if you look at the price of new equipment and you have to pay your taxes on top of that, well, it can really add up. So one of our options is to go out there and look at used equipment and see what options we have out there in relation to what we need. So you can go on to forums, which there's lots of good forums with lots of good used equipment. You can go to local camera clubs and get in touch with them. Quite often their members have equipment that they're going to sell. So always remember that buying used equipment is an option, because there's a lot of equipment out there that's barely been used, it's in brand new condition, and you'll save hundreds and even thousands over buying new. So remember that buying good used equipment is an option. Just as a side note to that, I do recommend to people that if you're going to buy a camera and a lens off of somebody used, I suggest that you meet them in person and get to look at the equipment and touch it and use it. I don't necessarily recommend buying expensive equipment from long distance and you get the piece of equipment and you haven't had a chance to look at it or test it yet. I think for equipment like this that's high-tech, I think it's important that you see it, meet with the person you're going to be buying it from, get comfortable with them, and get a chance to test that equipment first. So if you're going to go the used route, be sure to protect yourself and make sure that you're getting good equipment at a good price. Dave Hemmings here, NaturesPhotoAdventures. I have a camera and lens combination here that I shoot with quite often. This happens to be a Canon Mark IV. This happens to be a Canon 500mm lens. I love this combination. I use it for almost all the bird photography that I do. Does that mean that this would be the right lens for you and the right camera body for you? Well, no, not necessarily. It really depends on a few things such as budget, traveling, weight restrictions, how much you want to carry around, and really what you're going to be doing most of with your photography. So now that you've chosen what manufacturer you want to buy, whether it be Canon or Nikon or Sony, whoever it is, you've made your choice and you've bought your camera body. Now you want to think about what lens do I want to have, or what lenses do I want to have with that body. And believe me, after you get into this hobby, it's going to be which lenses do I want, not which lens do I want. Probably the most common question I get asked in regards to lens selection is, what's the perfect all-round lens? And there really isn't an answer to that. There are so many different shooting situations and so many different varying factors that go into determining which lens that you want to use, such as where you're traveling to, whether you're using a car to get to your destination and then shooting close to the vehicle so you don't have to travel far with the equipment, whether you're going to be hiking all day with the equipment, whether you want to be shooting handheld, or whether you're going to be shooting on a tripod like this, which a lens this large and heavy likely needs most of the time. I do some hand holding with this, but that was in my younger days. Now most of the time I'm going to have this combination set up on a tripod for a lot of the shooting that I do. So you have to take a look at a few things. One of them I mentioned is budget. There's a lot of lenses that come with our cameras. They're entry-level lenses. They're well enough made and they'll take a decent picture, and they're usually fairly lightweight and easy to carry around. But if you're going to be getting into nature photography, and more specifically even bird photography in a bigger way, you're going to want to consider having some different lenses in your bag. And one of the first lenses I recommend to people is a good high quality zoom lens in the focal range of say 80 to 400 millimeters, which would be a Nikon lens, a 100 to 400, which Canon makes. And then we have other manufacturers of lenses as well, which are priced a little bit lower than the Canon and Nikon lenses, but they're still very good quality lenses. We have Sigma lenses, we also have Tamron lenses. Sigma lenses are probably the next step down from the Canon and Nikon lenses as far as quality and price goes, and then Tamron just a little bit below that. They all do fantastic jobs. It's just a question of really what you want to spend and what you want to get out of your equipment. One of the best things I can tell you about lenses are, if you're going to make an investment in one of the more high-end lenses, like in Canon they have the L series lens, Nikon has a professional line of lenses. If you're going to make an investment in a lens like that, I can tell you that these products hold their value extremely well over the years. They perform well and they should last a long time. So if you get into it and you purchase a high-end lens, let's say a year down the road, you find out you're not so into it, you're not getting the use out of it, Well, you can turn around and sell that lens and probably get a very good dollar for it and not really have spent all that much money to have that lens for that period of time. So if you're really interested in bird and nature photography and you think you're going to be doing a lot of it, I really recommend to people that they consider making an investment in a really good piece of glass. And I would say, actually, I would go so far as to say that it's probably more important to spend more money on a piece of glass than it is to go to a higher end camera body. Because as I mentioned before, most of today's camera bodies will do most of the things right from the entry level right up to the professional models. Sure, there's some features and factors that go into making the higher end, more expensive camera bodies better and faster focusing and all kinds of different things. But if you want to choose where to spend more money, I would choose to spend it on expensive glass before I would think about spending on an expensive camera body. The glass is very important in image quality, focus speed, and it's going to hold its value really well. So don't be afraid to consider making that investment in a really nice piece of glass, because you really will be happy with it. It'll last you a long time, and if you go to sell it one day, well, you're still going to get a pretty good dollar for it.